am a nutritionist who specializes in working with people who have been through traumatic injuries, spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, orthopedic injuries. This is what I specialize in doing. So I myself sustained neurological injuries in a car accident 33 years ago. And the reason I got into doing this specifically is because when I introduced healthy eating, proper nutrition into my life after my injury, it made such a difference in terms of reducing secondary health complications like migraines, pain, all sorts of things. So it made such a difference in my life that I decided to go back to school, become a nutritionist, and help other people hopefully avoid some of the things that I was dealing with post-injury. So I have lots of personal experience with all the things that we're talking about here today. It's my pleasure to be here. So thanks again for having me back. Before we get started, if we go to the next slide, I just want to let everybody know that all of the information that is shared today is for your consideration and may be subject to change based on individual needs and interests. And please always consult with your healthcare provider or your physician before introducing any new supplements that might be discussed today. If you are on medications, some supplements do have interactions, contraindications with some supplements. So you always want to check with your doctor first or healthcare provider to make sure that there's none of those. Okay, so in the next slide, for those of you who have been through the rehabilitation process, you know that nutrition doesn't usually play a big part in the acute stages or even the rehabilitation stages because time is limited, resources are limited. And so it's not usually a big focus when you're going through hospital and rehab. And it can make a big difference in your life. So when you get out of rehabilitation or out of hospital, it's really important to consider nutrition. Just for some examples here, our brain uses, if you can go back one slide there. There we go. Thank you. Our brain uses 20% of our daily calories just to function, and it requires certain macro and micronutrients to function optimally, which I will be going through today. And there is a term called neuroplasticity. And this is the capacity of the brain to change with learning. And neuroplasticity occurs in the case of brain injury to compensate for lost functions and maximize remaining functions. And these changes associated with new learning after injury occur mostly at the level of the connections between neurons, between nerve cells. And you can really support this nerve function, overall brain function, after rehab, after you get out of hospital, and throughout your lifetime through nutrition. So today I'm going to share with you how specific foods can really help optimize your brain function. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Our bodies are amazing machines. Every single day, our bodies are constantly breaking down, rebuilding, repairing, regenerating themselves. And we do such an efficient job at it that we're completely unaware of everything our bodies are doing. And this includes our nervous system is constantly on, and we don't recognize or realize that it's constantly on. And because it's constantly on, it does need certain foods to function. So benefits of nutrition for acquired brain injury is that it supports the nerve function, but it also enhances natural healing potential, fulfills a higher need for nutrients, helps balance our hormones, our mood, increases energy, enhances concentration and memory, replenishes nutrients depleted by medication, and can help promote good sleep and ultimately regain control and independence of our lives, which is the ultimate goal of rehabilitation. So that's everything that nutrition can do, as well as supporting nerve function. So let's go through specifically on this slide here, how nutrition can support those nerve cells that I was talking about. So this is a picture here of a nerve cell. And when your nerve sends an electrical signal, it travels along this thing here called the axon. That's where that electrical signal travels. And this axon is protected by something called the myelin sheath. And the myelin sheath requires specific nutrients to function properly. Some of these nutrients that the myelin sheath needs is omega-3 fatty acids, which we get from things like fish, from nuts. It also needs vitamin B12, which we get from meat. It also needs something called folic acid, which we get from green leafy vegetables, and something called lecithin, which we can get from eggs. The egg yolk has lots of lecithin in it. So those are the nutrients that the axon needs. Now, when that nerve signal travels from down the axon into, you can see there something called the synaptic knob. At the synaptic knob, that's where neurotransmitters are released to carry that electrical impulse from one cell to the next. And neurotransmitters that are released here also need certain nutrients to be produced. And the nutrients that those need are amino acids, which we get from protein, and certain vitamins and minerals like vitamin B. And if we're missing any of these nutrients that I've just described from our diets, our nervous system can be negatively impacted. So how well our body, our cells, our nerves are able to function is directly affected by the foods that you choose to eat every single day. And it really is a choice. So you want to make sure you're making the right choices, because we really are what we eat. And if we choose to eat properly, it's reflected in how well we function physically and mentally. Okay, so I hope that gives you a good demonstration of nerve cells and the proper nutrients required. What's interesting, however, though, is that on average, people are not choosing to eat well for overall health and for brain health. And that's not just people who have sustained acquired brain injuries, it's everybody out there. And just to give you some examples, on average, in North America, every year, people consume about 15 pounds of salt, which is about 3 times the amount of salt that we actually need. That can contribute to high blood pressure, and that can contribute to strokes. People also tend to eat about 10 pounds, that's a lot of weight, of food additives. And what I mean by food additives, there are over 2,000 different food additives and 12,000 other chemicals used during different stages of growth, food preparation, and storage of food. And many of these chemicals are actually irritating to our nervous system, which can affect our brain function. Furthermore, many people are intolerant or allergic to some of these additives, preservatives, artificial flavors, artificial colors that are put into our foods to prevent spoiling and enhance flavor. And what's the big deal? Maybe about a little bit of an intolerance or an allergy to a food. A lot. It really does make a difference, because chronic intolerances or allergies to foods actually cause inflammation in our bodies and inflammation in our brains. And prolonged inflammation in our brain, in our bodies, can contribute to things like headaches, depression, hyperactivity, poor memory, poor concentration. So you want to reduce inflammation. So one of the best things to do is just get rid of all these food additives and the processed foods. A really good tip to remember is if you notice that a certain food that you eat consistently causes you to get really tired after you eat it, like 10, 15, 20 minutes after you eat it, you tend to get tired. That's a good sign that you have some kind of negative reaction to that food. So your body's energy is going to fighting what you've just eaten, as opposed to giving your body energy afterwards. So always keep that in mind if certain foods cause low energy and fatigue. Okay, so not something else here is we also tend to eat about 152 pounds of sugar a year. That works out to be about 22 teaspoons of sugar a day. That is a ton of sugar. On average, women should be getting no more than 5 to 6 teaspoons. Men should be getting no more than 9 teaspoons. The problem with refined sugar, so the processed sugar that you're putting, say, in your coffee or that's in candies and cookies and chocolate bars and pop, is that high sugar intake is associated with things like depression, depressed immune function, anxiety, fatigue, sleep problems. So you don't want to be dealing with any of that. So again, the best thing you can do is really reduce your refined sugar intake. So we also tend to eat about 133 pounds of grains. Usually they're processed grains, which means it's the white stuff, the white bread, the white pasta. Once that's in your system and digested, it basically turns to a form of sugar. So again, you're increasing blood sugar levels that are contributing to some of those symptoms I just talked about, like the depression and the sleep problems. So today's diet is really, North American diet is based on these things that you see here. And this is all because they are fast, they are easy, they are convenient, but they have little nutrients and little fiber, so they do very little for our health. And what I tend to see with the clients that I work with who have sustained acquired brain injury is that they gravitate to foods like this because they are fast, they're easy, and they're convenient, but they don't support brain health or overall health. So there's lots of things you can do to incorporate healthy foods into your diet on a consistent basis and provide your brain, your body with all the nutrients that it needs to function really, really well. So here's a quick look on the next slide here of the key essential elements that I'm going to be discussing in detail today that we need to support brain function. And the first one here is maintaining good digestive health. People don't often associate your digestion with your brain health, but your foundation of good health starts with a healthy, strong digestive system. You need to make sure that you are breaking down, absorbing the nutrients that you eat really well. So we need to make sure that that is working well, first and foremost. Then I'm going to talk about the key vitamins you need, then the healthy complex carbohydrates that you want to be focusing on. I'm going to talk about healthy fats, healthy proteins. Then I'm going to go through foods to avoid, because sometimes foods that you avoid are just as important as the foods that you introduce. And then I'll go through 2 specific diets that through research have had great results in assisting people with acquired brain injury. Okay. So let's go first and foremost to the healthy digestive system. There is a very, very strong connection between our digestive system and our brain. And our brain, like any other organ, relies on specific nutrients to function well. And what's really, really interesting is that our nervous and our digestive systems are very intimately interconnected. So if you go back to when you were an embryo in the womb, your primal gut tube and your primal nerve tube actually grew together side by side. And then as you grew as a fetus, they grew apart, but there's still nerve connections between the nervous system, the brain, and your digestive system. And we have about 100 million neurons in our guts that are constantly communicating with our brain and the rest of our body, which is why when you get nervous or anxious, you get that kind of butterfly feeling in your stomach. It's because there really is a connection between your brain and your gut. In fact, your digestive system and nervous system are so intimately connected that there's a really great book that a doctor wrote 1999. His name is Dr. Michael Gershon, and the book that he wrote is called The Second Brain. He actually refers to our guts as our second brain because there are so many nerves in there that are constantly communicating with your brain and your head. So there's a nervous connection between your gut and your brain. There's also a hormonal connection between your gut and your brain. So your gut in your stomach is where the hormone serotonin is produced and stored, about 80 to 90% of it. Serotonin is what's known as our happy hormone. So it affects our mood, it affects our brain. So in order to be producing serotonin, you want to make sure that your digestive system, your gut health is in tip-top shape to be producing these hormones that affect your mood and your brain health. Another really important gut-brain connection involves the bacteria in our guts. So there's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. We need a lot of good bacteria in our guts to function really well. We need it for proper digestive and bowel health. We have at any given time 400 to 500 different types of bacteria in our intestines, and we need them. And so when you have enough good bacteria in your guts and you're digesting food well and then eliminating it really well because it helps your bowel function, then you're getting rid of the toxins that are produced in your gut after you've digested your food. So if you are not having a regular bowel movement every day and those toxins are building up in your gut, it's very, very interesting as these toxins in your gut will be reabsorbed into your bloodstream, and it can actually contribute to things like fatigue, mental fatigue, headaches, lack of concentration, lack of memory. It can contribute to irritability, depression. And one specific toxin that can be produced that's it's actually produced as a result of putrefaction of protein in your gut. It's called skatol. If you're not going to the bathroom at least once a day, and a lot of clients I work with because they're on pain medications, sometimes don't go to the bathroom maybe once every 3 to 4 days are having a bowel movement. So when those toxins are building up and skatol is building up because of protein that may have been consumed, it can actually depress the central nervous system, which includes your brain. So you want to get lots of good bacteria in your gut to make sure that you're having regular bowel movements, because it does actually impact your brain function and how you're feeling and your overall mood. So that one's really very, very interesting. And what's also been recently discovered is following a head injury, the brain itself becomes inflamed because of the injury. And when the brain is inflamed, in turn, the gut becomes inflamed within a few hours of injury, which is really quite fascinating. Again, it's because of this connection that's going on. When your gut is inflamed, essential nutrients aren't broken down and absorbed properly. And the gut can then become permeable to toxins that are consumed through food, through anything you might drink. Then these can pass into the bloodstream, which in turn can cause more inflammation in the brain. And it becomes this vicious cycle of inflammation between the gut and the brain. So again, it's affecting brain function. So those are just some of the examples of the gut-brain connection, why we need to take really great care of our digestive system. So moving on to the next slide, what do you need to do to help support your digestive system and your gut health? One of the big things is to increase that good bacteria I just talked about, probiotics, in your diet. So you can get probiotic rich foods like yogurt or sauerkraut or miso, or you can take a probiotic supplement, which has different strains of healthy bacteria and different numbers. Sometimes you can get 8, 10, 15, 50 billion microorganisms per capsule. I like to say get at least 8 billion microorganisms per capsule. And you'd be amazed by taking a probiotic supplement, how regular it makes your bowel function. It's really quite remarkable, especially if you're taking any kind of pain medications, which tend to constipate you. This is a nice, healthy way to keep things, literally keep it moving. The next thing is to eat slowly, chew your food really, really well. So literally in your mouth, when you're chewing, you're releasing digestive enzymes in your saliva, and that helps break down your food so that when it gets into your stomach, it actually eases the burden in your stomach to help pass things through into your intestines. The next thing that I recommend is to drink water with fresh lemon. Okay, so just squeezing a quarter or a half fresh lemon into your water helps the digestive process, also helps detoxification with your liver to get rid of those toxins that build up in your stomach that I was talking about. Eat lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. I'm going to talk more about those shortly because they contain lots of good fiber. Fiber, when it's in your gut, actually absorbs water and gives more bulk to the matter in your intestines and helps push through your digestive tract and through your lower bowel to keep things literally moving. And the other thing is your bowels love routine. Your intestinal tract loves routine. So as much as you can, try and eat on a regular schedule. If you tend to eat breakfast every day at 10, in and around there is great. And then lunch around 1 or 2, whatever your personal schedule is. If you can stick to a regular routine like that, your bowels just function better because they just love that routine. They know what to do and when to do it. And the other thing I've got written here is to eat in a relaxed state. Stress actually decreases your digestive system. It decreases your stomach acid production. It decreases those digestive enzymes that I was talking about and how they function. So if you're eating in a rush, on the go, on the run, you're actually kind of shutting down your digestive system. So as much as you can, enjoy your food, eat in a relaxed state. Food's meant to be enjoyed. So sit back, relax, enjoy your meals. Okay, so that's taking care of your digestive system. Let's move on now to specific vitamins to support brain health. And the two big ones here I want to talk about are vitamin C. So what's fascinating here is your brain contains the highest amount of vitamin C in your body. It's very clever. It does this because vitamin C is considered in what it is a antioxidant, which means it actually helps neutralize free radicals. So free radicals are unstable molecules that happen as a result of everything we do, eating, breathing. If there's pollution in the air, we'll get more free radicals, but it's a natural process. And so you want lots of antioxidants to actually neutralize these free radicals, because free radicals can cause tissue damage in our arteries and in the brain. So it's very clever that our bodies have realized to put vitamin C in our brains to protect our brain from free radical damage. So antioxidants are found in things like tea, fruits, and vegetables, especially like dark fruits and vegetables. The darker the fruit, the darker the vegetable, the more antioxidants it will have. So you want to tend to get 1 to 2 servings of fruit, dark fruits a day, like berries are wonderful. 5 or more servings of vegetables, dark vegetables a day, to get lots of rich vitamin C in there, lots of good fiber, lots of antioxidants. The other thing I want to mention about berries, studies have shown that blueberries and strawberries can actually help improve memory and motor skills. So they also have great antioxidants, but for breakfast or for a snack, get those blueberries and strawberries in your diet. The next key vitamins I want to talk about for your brain are B vitamins. So B vitamins help regulate the brain and the nervous system. They help improve cognitive function, emotions, behavior. They can actually help prevent brain shrinkage, which happens as we get older. B vitamins, though, are water soluble, which means they pass through our body quite quickly. So even a short-term deficiency of any of the 8 B vitamins can have an effect and a shift in your mood and in your thinking. So where do you get vitamin C and B vitamins? What are the richest sources for you? Go to the next slide. Thank you, Tamara. Okay, so vitamin C, we all know citrus fruits, lemons, limes, oranges have vitamin C, but even better sources are things like broccoli, red green peppers, dark berries that I was just mentioning. So the more you can get these into your diet, the better. Get that fresh squeezed lemon in your water and then eat lots of these fruits and vegetables for the vitamin C to protect your brain. In terms of B vitamins, things like legumes, lentils, avocados are wonderful for B vitamins. Red meat is a great source of vitamin B12. Now, if you know that you don't eat enough of these foods every single day, like I said, 1 or 2 servings of fruit, 5 or more servings of vegetables every day is ideally what you're going for. If it's difficult for you to chop and prepare and get all these foods in your diet, you might want to consider taking a multivitamin every day just to ensure that you're getting all of these nutrients every single day in your diet. Okay. Moving on to healthy fats. So our brain, 60% of our brain is made of fat. So we want to keep feeding our brain healthy fats to keep it operating and functioning really well. What these fats do is they help increase communication and the connections between nerve cells, as I was showing you earlier in that nerve cell picture. They help reduce inflammation. I was talking about inflammation in our gut and our brains and that cycle that can happen after injury. So omega-3 fatty acids in particular are really powerful natural anti-inflammatories. These fats, healthy fats, also help balance blood sugar levels throughout the day, which can help balance our energy levels. And healthy fats carry what's called fat-soluble vitamins around our system. So vitamins D, E, K, and A are carried around our bodies on fat molecules. So we want to make sure there's lots of good healthy fats in there to get these particular vitamins carried throughout our system. And when you eat healthy fats, it gives you a sense of satisfaction. That's why we love fatty foods. So you want to make sure you're eating healthy fats to give you that sense of satisfaction, because you'll feel great about the meal you just ate. But then it also tends to prevent overeating and reduce cravings later on. So where do you get these healthy fats? There's different kinds of healthy fats. And the ones that I want to talk about right here are omega-3 and omega-6. So omega-3 healthy fats we tend to get from fish, nuts, and seeds. And I've listed some really good ones here, like salmon, mackerel, herring, sardines, anchovies, ground flax seeds or flaxseed oil, and walnuts. Great, great sources. Omega-6 are mainly from seeds. So sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds. So snack on those throughout the day. That would be great. You do need to, this is a really important fact, get these from your foods. Our bodies do not produce these fats. We must get them through our foods. So you want to make sure you're having fish 3 to 4 times a week and snacking on nuts and seeds like this. Okay, the other couple of healthy fats that I want to talk about are phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylserine. These are also really essential to the nervous system and the brain health. They're considered phospholipids, and they are extremely important. So phosphatidylcholine helps make something called acetylcholine, which is your memory neurotransmitter. It also helps build material for nerve cells and receptor sites for all of those neurotransmitters I was talking about. So sources of phosphatidylcholine are things like eggs, fish, and beef. So often I'll hear people say, oh, I had a really nice omelet. It was an egg white omelet. Get that egg yolk in there. That's where a lot of these really good brain healthy fats are in. So have a full-on omelet with that yolk in there. Phosphatidylserine in studies show that it helps nerve cells communicate in your brain more effectively. These come from things like organ meats. If you're not a big fan of organ meats, things like liver, then you can also get them from soybeans or white beans. Okay, so legumes basically. If you have a deficiency in healthy fats in your system, if we can go to the next slide, please, Tamara. Thank you. Deficiency in healthy fats in your body can also contribute to things like depression, fatigue, memory problems, behavioral problems, learning difficulties. So you really want to make sure you're getting these foods in your diet every single day. So let's go again to the next slide with some sources of what you need to do. Eat fish 3 or 4 times a week. Again, here are some great healthy sources. Increase the phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylserine in your diet through eggs, lean beef, legumes, organ meats if you like it. Snack on nuts and seeds. And if you, again, don't eat these foods on a regular basis, and a lot of people I work with don't like fish, they're not going to eat fish 3 or 4 times a week, then you might want to consider taking an omega-3 fatty acid supplement. You can take 2 to 4 of these a day, 1,000 milligrams each. Each pill is 1,000 milligrams. And what I've put down here, you can see, is high DHA omega-3 fish. There's different types of omega-3. The DHA is particularly good for supporting nerve health and brain function. So if you're to go to a health food store or go to Amazon online, you can actually type in high DHA and you'll get lots of different brands of high DHA coming up. But again, with this particular supplement, if you are on any blood thinning medications, always check with your physician first, because fish oils are natural blood thinners. They're great natural anti-inflammatories, but they're also natural blood thinners. So you always want to check with your physician first. Okay, so moving on to the next category of foods that we want to increase to support brain health, complex carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are your brain's and your body's preferred fuel source. When you eat carbohydrates, they are turned into what's called glucose, and glucose is what our bodies use for energy. Okay, so we know that after brain injury, the glucose uptake in the brain is impaired. So you need to ensure that not only are you getting enough glucose in your body, in your brain every day, but you want to make sure you're getting them from the right sources, which are complex carbohydrates. And what I mean by that is it's got fiber in it. When you say it's a complex carbohydrate, it's complex because it's got lots of fiber in there. Fiber, as I mentioned earlier, great for bowel function, but what fiber does in your stomach once you eat it is it slows the release of that glucose I was talking about into your bloodstream. So it helps give us really good sustained, even source of glucose, which is energy to your body, to your brain throughout the day. So it helps balance your blood sugars, which helps balance your energy, but also helps with better sleep at night and better mood. So it's really, really important that you get the complex ones in there. So I want to give you examples though of good carbohydrates versus bad, so you have a really clear understanding. So the white stuff, always remember the white stuff. If you have white bread, white pasta, white rice, cakes, cookies, anything like that uses like the white flour, the fiber has been removed and it's considered to be refined, processed carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates. What these do in your body, as opposed to the high fiber ones, is when they get into your system, because there's little to no fiber there, they get into your bloodstream really, really quickly. And that makes your blood sugar go up really, really quickly, which gives you an energy hit. Initially makes you feel good, but what goes up must come down. And when you get that energy hit, it's great for a little while, but then you're going to get that energy crash. And that's what can contribute to things like fatigue and irritability. So you want to make sure you're getting lots of the complex carbs ones. Okay, we can go on to the next slide here, please, Tamara. So this is just some other examples of what can cause those unstable blood sugar levels. You can eat the white stuff, get the blood sugars up, blood sugars down. Skipping meals will also cause unstable blood sugar levels, affect your energy, affect your mood, affect your sleep. Not eating enough healthy fat, protein, and fiber in your diet, because all of those slow the release of sugar. But also things like consuming too many stimulants like coffee, caffeine, pop, sugar, sugar, sugar. Caffeine causes blood sugar levels to go up quickly and then crash again. A lot of people that I work with are consuming 6 or more cups of coffee a day with tons and tons and tons of sugar in there. So it's giving them an immediate hit to get things done and feel good, but then their blood sugar is rising so fast and they're crashing, and then they want to get more caffeine and sugar in the system. And it turns into this up and down cycle all day long, and it's going to affect everything you do, how you function, your mood, how you sleep. So you really want to avoid doing that to your system. So get those complex carbs with all the fiber in there. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please, Tamara. This is a really interesting slide. I love this one because when you look at very common brain injury symptoms that happen after acquired brain injury, they mirror the same kind of symptoms that can happen with unstable blood sugar levels from eating too much sugar, too much white bread, white pasta throughout the day. So if you have any symptoms on the left after your brain injury, eating lots of sugar and the refined processed carbohydrates can actually exacerbate some of those symptoms. So you want to get the complex fiber-rich foods in there and really calm down some of these symptoms, prevent some of them from happening. So this is a really, really interesting slide. So I want to give you an example of a healthy blood sugar diet with lots of fiber in there and the kinds of things that you want to consider eating to help balance the blood sugars. So for example, breakfast, 8 o'clock, you have a couple of eggs with the yolk for the healthy fats, some spinach in there, you're getting lots of good antioxidants, and you're getting lots of good fiber, mushrooms, and a little bit of goat cheese for some protein. Okay, great. 10 o'clock, maybe you want to have some hummus made from chickpeas, good fiber. Carrots, again, good fiber. Lunch, a salad, maybe a little piece of chicken on there. Another snack, nuts. Nuts are great protein, healthy fats, and good fiber. For dinner, you could have some fish with some other kind of vegetables like asparagus in there. And for dessert, instead of having a piece of cake, maybe have some Greek yogurt, protein, maybe a little bit of banana, because it's got some fiber in there. So this is an example of a really good, healthy sugar diet. And let me give you an example now of an unhealthy one. So if we can go to the next one here, thank you, unhealthy blood sugar diet. And this is more commonly what everybody in North America eats. Go through the drive-through in the morning, coffee, double, double, triple, triple, lots of milk, sugar, bagel and cream cheese. Bagels, I know how like wonderful they are. They're so delicious. They're comforting, but they raise blood sugar so fast. Then your blood sugars go up and then they crash. By noon, you're starving again. Your blood sugars want to go back up again to function. So you reach for a can of pop, some pizza, blood sugars go back up, and by 3 o'clock, your blood sugars are crashing again. So you grab a chocolate bar, maybe a coffee, put some more triple, triple, double, double in there. So you can see the cycle that's going on. Dinner, if it's white pasta and a glass of wine, once that's digested, all of it is basically sugar. And then you have more sugar on top of that for dessert. So this is how the average North American would eat. So you can see the big difference, right? So really try and consume the slide I had before is what you really want to go for. Okay, moving on to the next nutrient, proteins. Oh, sorry, let's go back here. What do you want to do? Here's some more examples of the complex carbohydrates. So we'll go back one more tomorrow. Sorry, it's my fault. What you need to do is eat fiber-rich complex carbohydrates, fruits, vegetables, legumes, lentils, whole grains. When I talk about whole grains, it's like whole grain pasta, whole grain bread, brown rice, lots of fiber in there. Avoid the whole wheat. Whole wheat is great marketing, but it has very little fiber. So it's going to increase your blood sugars like the white stuff. Go for whole grain. And you can see it's whole grain. First ingredient, when you turn over the package to say whole grain, whole grain. You don't want to see whole wheat or refined processed flour in there. Stay away as best you can from white bread, white pasta, white rice, the bagels, pizza. If you do have pizza, go for the thin crust. Cakes and cookies and pops, all that stuff gone. It's just sugar, 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 raising those blood sugars and then crashing your blood sugar levels throughout the day. So there's some more information for you on what to eat, what to avoid. And protein is the next slide here. The role of protein is that it helps with our growth, with our maintenance, collagen production, our hair, our skin, our nails. It also helps make enzymes that we need for digestion. It helps with antibody production to help support our immune system. It's a key component in red blood cells. It can be converted to energy as well. So protein has so many roles in our body. We want to make sure we're getting enough protein every single day. When we actually digest protein, they're broken down into things called amino acids. And then our body takes these amino acids, very clever, repackages them to make things like neurotransmitters, which are those brain chemicals I've mentioned before, which help communicate information, help with our memory, with our concentration. So we need to make sure we're getting enough amino acids to make these neurotransmitters. So a deficiency, oh, there we go. Yep. A deficiency in protein can contribute to things like depression, apathy, lack of motivation, irritability, poor memory, poor concentration, and sleep problems. Now, there are two different kinds of amino acids that I just want to explain to you. There is non-essential amino acids, and that means that our bodies are capable of making certain amino acids from other amino acids. So we don't necessarily need to get them from specific foods in our diet. But then there are the essential amino acids, and there's 9 of them. These ones our bodies cannot make. So they must be obtained from foods that we eat, certain protein foods that we eat. And I'll give you some examples of those. Okay. So here's an example. If you're deficient in certain proteins, amino acids, it can make you more susceptible to some of these things I just mentioned, like poor motivation, lack of engaging, and poor initiation. And I'll just give you an example of how this actually works, okay? And why that essential amino acid really is important. So if you have a lack of protein, it can lead to a deficiency because it can actually cause low motivation to even prepare healthy foods, and that low engaging in going grocery shopping to buy those healthy proteins that you need. And how that works is this. Okay, so the amino acids called tyrosine from turkey, eggs, salmon, and spinach, and the amino acid phenylalanine, which is found in oats, eggs, and beef, they're necessary to produce the hormone adrenaline, which gives us energy, gives us that boost of motivation and alertness. Now, tyrosine is non-essential, which means our bodies can make it from other amino acids. But phenylalanine is essential, which means we must get it from our diet. So we know we need tyrosine and phenylalanine to make adrenaline, but if you're not eating enough, say, fish, eggs, beef, and oats, and you don't have enough of the phenylalanine, it will affect your adrenaline, which is going to affect your motivation, your engagement, feeling upbeat and alert. So this is why it's important to make sure you have a good variety of different proteins in your diet at breakfast, lunch, and dinner throughout the day. Amino acids, I just want to give you another example, are also critical for good sleep. And after a traumatic brain injury, many individuals experience long-term sleep disturbances. Sleep is critical for healing, for cellular regeneration, repair, overall health, and longevity. But a lack of sleep can lead to other issues like depression, weight gain, anxiety, fatigue, obviously. And I just want to give you some more examples of the importance of getting all the healthy amino acids in your diet. I'm sorry, if we can go back one. There we go. Okay, so the amino acid tryptophan, which we get from things like turkey, beef, shrimp, walnuts, sesame seeds, and almonds, this is also essential. Tryptophan must be consumed in the diet. And then tryptophan combines with vitamins like vitamin B6, vitamin C, folic acid, and magnesium to make a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is what makes us sleepy, go to sleep, stay asleep. So again, if we're not getting enough tryptophan in our diet from the right foods, the right protein sources, or we're not getting enough vitamin B6, vitamin C, folic acid, and magnesium, it's going to impact our melatonin production, which will affect our sleep. Okay, so I hope that gives you a good explanation why. Okay, so here's what you need to do to make sure you're getting enough protein, amino acids in your diet every day. Make sure you have a little bit of protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a little bit in your snacks by having some nuts or some seeds, okay? And I've listed some really healthy quality sources of proteins: fish, chicken, turkey, nut seeds. If you don't like nut seeds, to eat them if it's too much, even like a nut butter, like a cashew butter or an almond butter or peanut butter. Quinoa is a seed. It's actually got protein in it. Greek yogurt or yogurt, red meat, legumes, and lentils, hummus, really great sources of protein. So pick and choose which ones you like of these. Try and get a variety of different proteins in your diet. I certainly know people who will only eat, say, chicken all day, every day. Try and mix it up to make sure you're giving your body all of those different amino acids that it needs to make all those healthy hormones and neurotransmitters that you need to feel good and function really, really well. Okay, so I've given you lots of ideas here of foods to consume to support brain function. I also really want to talk about ones to avoid, because it's really important to include certain nutrients in your diet, but almost equally, I'm going to say, is important to avoid certain things because they can really set off a lot of symptoms and exacerbate certain symptoms that you already have from brain injury. And I'm going to go through them here now. So again, I've talked earlier about food colorings, food flavorings, MSG, preservatives, all these chemicals, all these food additives that are put into our food. And I just want to talk about some of them specifically to give you a better understanding why it's important to avoid them. So food flavorings, food colorings, these are actually made from coal tar and petroleum. Not healthy at all, shouldn't be in our systems. They really can contribute to headaches. MSG, which is a flavor enhancer. Some of you may have already experienced this if you have some fast foods and MSG is used on the food. It can trigger headaches, agitation very quickly. I'm one of these people. If I have MSG, I get a migraine almost instantly. I need to avoid it at all costs. Things like preservatives. So preservatives are put in our foods to keep food on the shelf for longer. They're not put in the food for our good to keep us living longer. So you'll get sulfites are often put into apricots, dried fruits to keep them preserved. Nitrates or preservatives put in a lot of meats, hot dogs, things like that. Again, these can really contribute to headaches. They're very irritating for a lot of people's systems, particularly if you've had any kind of nerve damage or a brain injury. So try and get preservative-free dried fruits. They're out there. Try and get nitrate-free meats as much as possible and reduce the intake of these kind of preservatives. There's something else that is listed here called BHT. BHT used to be put directly in our foods as a preservative. It was a very, very, very effective preservative, but they realized a long time ago that there was a link to an increased risk of cancer from intake of BHT. So the food manufacturers didn't want to eliminate it entirely because it was such a great preservative of food, things like cookies, crackers, cereal. So what they've done to get around it, instead of putting the BHT in the food itself, they put it in the packaging of the food. So that bag that often contains the cereal or the crackers or the box, and you'll see it on the ingredient list. It has to be listed, and it will be the last thing listed. You'll see BHT as a preservative in the ingredient list. If you see that, avoid it. Try and not buy that product at all. Aspartame, which are low calorie sweeteners, or any kind of low calorie sweetener like Splenda even. These also can be very irritating, disrupt the central nervous system, and cause headaches. Avoid this. Instead, use things like stevia or some honey, natural, just natural sweeteners that way. It tastes better as well. And with regards to things like pesticides, a lot of our foods are sprayed, like the average apple that ends up on your table or on your counter has been sprayed 17 times. Organic food is very expensive, no doubt. So to avoid that, just wash your fruits and vegetables really well and get those pesticides off of it. And the other thing that's listed here is GMOs. So GMOs, they estimate, are in 70% of our foods in grocery stores. So you want to avoid these. Animal studies do show that it can disrupt your immune system. It can affect your hormone system. So try and avoid GMOs as well. GMOs basically are in packaged foods. So yeah, just try and get rid of those and buy the fresh stuff. There's another link here. This is really interesting, is the size of our belly affects the size of our brain. So studies demonstrate that the larger your gut, the larger your belly, the more your brain shrinks. So eating a diet high in sugar and refined carbohydrates that I was talking about earlier actually decreases something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And it's a chemical that helps your brain grow and produce new brain cells. So by keeping a healthy weight, keeping your belly down, it helps keep that compound going and keeps your brain growing and reproducing as it should, those brain cells. The next thing you want to do is avoid trans fats. I mentioned a lot of healthy good fats, the omega-3s, the omega-6s, the phospholipids that you want to increase in your diet. Try and avoid trans fats at all costs. Trans fats, again, they extend the shelf life of foods. They do not extend our shelf life. They are unnatural, man-made processed fats made from vegetable oils, and they actually block the conversion of essential fats in our system, those healthy ones that we actually want. So again, trans fats are put into processed foods to preserve them. If you just eat whole foods, natural foods without processing, then you know you're going to be avoiding those trans fats. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about here are two specific diets that can support brain function. So the first one here is the ketogenic diet. So this is a high fat diet, high healthy fat diet. And what this does, it's very popular right now for weight loss, is the body converts fat into energy versus using glucose that I was talking about before. It can help balance those blood sugars. But what the key is for brain injuries is it's shown to be neuroprotective to the brain. So some people function very well in a ketogenic diet. They get energized from it. Other people I've worked with, it doesn't work for them, but it's something you might want to consider trying. So that's just an option. And the other diet, again, it's also very popular right now. It's called intermittent fasting. So this is an eating pattern that cycles between periods of fasting and then periods of eating. It's usually short windows of eating, like an 8-hour time frame when you eat. This can also increase levels of that brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which can improve neural function. And if you don't want to be doing this every single day, an 8-hour window, you can even do it every other day. That's also shown to be effective by having a window every other day, a short window, and kind of mix it up in your system. So again, it might be something you want to try if you find that your energy is low and maybe want to boost your energy. This is something you might want to try. So I've given you, sorry, my presentation went longer than I anticipated. Lots of information about all the healthy vitamins, proteins, fats, complex carbohydrates that you want to be consuming in your diet. So